Good morning, everybody. It's Jeff Goldberg for the Sales Pro Network. It is Friday, December 20th. The end of the year is almost here. I hope you have either achieved your goal or you're about to in any of the next 10 seconds because you don't have much time left. Before I introduce our guest today, please do make calls to everybody who you've spoken to during the year who said they wanted to think it over. Maybe they have some last minute good news for you. Call all your current clients and previous clients to wish them a happy new year and a happy Merry Christmas or a happy Hanukkah or whatever they are, and touch base and keep prospecting until the very end, because what you do now is going to set up your first week and first month and Q1. So get in there. I am a sales coach and trainer. I work with individuals and companies internationally to help them increase their sales. And I founded the Sales Pro Network to elevate the profession of sales, to give salespeople a place to hang out, network with each other, and learn. And if you've been with us before, you know that every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, we either do a live training or a live interview with somebody who can add value to the profession of sales. And today is no exceptions, my friend. We've got Todd Schuchart, who is the founder of Razor Ridge Leads. He is a lead generation specialist, and I don't know anybody who doesn't want more leads, so we're going to pick his brain today. Good morning, Todd.
Good morning, Jeff. How you doing, buddy?
Outstanding. And yourself?
Yeah, we're doing good. Living the dream, right?
Yes, we are, sir. So before we get into the 1,000,001 questions I have for you, why don't you give us a 2 or 3 minute version of your background, Todd?
Yeah, what's funny is I started in sales, I say, at birth. They used to say that years ago, it was like, salesman, you're a born salesman, right? We've all heard that. I don't know if that was necessarily true. I definitely was a born mouth. And in 6th grade, I read my first sales book. It was Zig Ziglar on selling. I can still picture him door knocking, selling pots and pans to get his wife right out of the hospital with the baby. And I just thought that was so cool, and that was my beginning love affair with selling. I knew as a kid I was either going to be a salesman or a Playboy photographer. So salesman won out. Here we are. And I have I'm a student more than anything, right? I follow everybody. I watch everything. I read everything I get my hands on. I'm in my 50s. I've been selling since my first job was a sales job. And I think that it's an incredible craft and a really fun way to spend your life.
I couldn't agree more. And I got to say that I love what you said about that you're a student. I'm often asked, Jeff, how'd you get so good at selling? Well, and I do have some of the characteristics that tend to make you better at selling. I'm outgoing, I'm friendly, I'm funny, I'm honest, things like that. But that's not what made me good at sales. Like you, I read every book. I went to every seminar. Certainly, I've seen Zig Ziglar more than once. Absolutely. And so many times I find that people treat sales as a job. It's what they're going to do till they find something better. And that's certainly how I got into sales 50 years ago. I had no intention of going into sales, but I went into it and did start studying and did start learning. And I found it was really a great career. And I've said this before on the show, but my stepfather told me that sales is a great career. And here's why. Every day you get to wake up, look yourself in the mirror and give yourself a raise. And then all you have to do is go out and earn it. And I love that about that. So yeah, you got to study. You got to put in the time and effort and read the books and go to the seminars and all that stuff. So what's the story behind your very first job, and how did that shape your view of business in general?
I actually, it's funny, as I started working at a hot dog stand in upstate New York in the summer. I literally got the job. I went there on my birthday. They hired people at 15. And you worked the counter. It wasn't anything fancy. It was hot dogs and hamburgers and French fries, right? Very simple, but it was near the beach. So it was incredibly popular, very busy. You didn't write anything down. They didn't even give you pens. You had to scream your orders into the cook. And then you picked them up and dressed them hot, the ketchup and mustard and relish and onions and hot sauce and all the wonderful things. And they taught me a lot in that job. The first was, if you have time to lean, you got time to clean. Right. And as a kid, you're like, ugh. But it was great because what it gives you is that foundation, right? If you're in between sales calls or you have a no-show, what a great use of time to either do what you said, follow up with your folks that told you to call them back, or pick up a book or listen to a podcast or anything you can do to take that, what is now free time, and turn it into something that gives you some value. So that was probably the first. And the second I learned at that place was that I did not want to be hocking hamburgers and hot dogs 13 hours a day for the rest of my life. So it's also a motivator, right? You know, when you don't want to dig ditches and you're digging ditches, you figure out how to get out of the ditch. And I think that those were two of the biggest things that I got out of that experience.
Love that. Coincidentally, my first job was also at a hot dog stand. I'm from Chicago originally, and Chicago dogs are mustard and relish and onions and pickles and hot peppers. And boy, oh boy, we did not write down anything on it. And you had to remember the order. And I still remember grill taking orders, 2 cheeseburgers. Boy, oh boy, those were the days.
We had a way to do, you would call and you'd say 2 hot dogs. We had red and white dogs in New York. So it was a Texas hot or a white hot. And you'd say 2 Texas, 1 white hot. And then you'd have to say 2 and 1. And it was great because you would, you know, and then you order fries and everything. It was 2, 1, 1, and 1. And it was a lot of fun, you know, and anybody and everybody went there. So all your family would be like, what does that mean when you say the 2, 1, and 1 thing? It was kind of fun. So
too much fun. So, you're a lead generation specialist, and you do data-driven leads. So what's one thing about the industry that you're so passionate about that you could talk about it all day long?
Oh, you know, it's interesting is all of it really, but how the lead, the data, and the agent all have to participate in the success of the program, right?
And when you say agent, you mostly work in the insurance industry, right?
I do. Sorry, salesperson, right? So these leads suck is not the solution, right? It's never going to get you where you want to be, and that is probably the biggest thing that I would love to fix in the sales space is that we look for these things to deflect onto. And, you know, when you've been through your 17th lead vendor and it's still the leads, maybe there's something else in that math equation that we need to look at. And unfortunately for people, that's the most uncomfortable. So we want to avoid that at all costs, right? So I could preach that all day long because we know you break through, you start to figure out the game and how it all works. And it's not the lead, right? It's a lot of controlling the controllables and not worrying about the things you can't control. I think I probably spend the majority of my time reprogramming salespeople than anything else.
Now, you're not saying that all leads are good leads, are you? Because there are some leads. I used to work for Encyclopedia.
Oh no, listen, there's complete dog shit. There's bad leads out there for sure. You know, if I'm selling insurance and you're sending me a lead that was a contest lead that you created at the mall, not my lead.
Yeah.
But if the lead intent matches the solution the person is selling, then it's not a leads problem, right?
Absolutely, much better.
So yeah, you're right. There are absolutely. I called Dun and Bradstreet leads back in the day, and the Yellow Pages, the 2 worst lead sources. Personally, I've thought in the world because they were so beat up, and there's no intent.
Right. I once sold timeshares. I did it for 2 months. It was the only sales job I was unsuccessful at, and the reason was it was at the Hilton in New York City on 6th Avenue. They had gutted 2 floors and built these gorgeous timeshares, and they were really stunning. But the way we got our leads was as people were walking by in the lobby, they say, "We'll give you 2 free tickets to the theater tonight, to Broadway, if you'll come up and take a tour." Well, who doesn't want 2 free tickets to Broadway? But these people do. You know, an hour later, it's like, "Do you have $42,000 for me that you would like to plop down right now?" So that was the only one I didn't do well at. Those were some pretty crappy leads.
Yeah, that's really bad when you're trying to sell 42K into somebody who's just taking freebies, right?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So, what's one misconception that people have about what you do, and what's the real truth behind it?
You know, I think that the lead gen space is riddled with snake oil salesmen, and you know, we're seeing the importance of selecting a lead vendor moving into 2025 is higher than it's ever been because of the new FCC laws that are coming down, the one-to-one marketing and not being able to resell and rehash leads over and over again. So I think that the biggest misconception is people feel like a lead vendor is a lead vendor, and I don't think that is true. Just like a salesperson isn't just a salesperson, right? You've got people hiding in sales that are just here, like you said, waiting for something real to happen. And then you've got career guys like us that study this and take it as a craft, and we have numbers that are completely different, correct? So I think that that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions in the space, is that a lead's a lead is a lead. We already know that that isn't true, although
Sure.
there are some sales managers that would like to convince you otherwise, right, about that. So that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions about what we do and where we do it.
Yeah. So at another job, I sold Encyclopedia Britannica for 8 years, and there was definitely a difference in leads. Some leads, I actually had a kiosk at LaGuardia Airport in the Delta terminal between the ticket counter and the gate. So you had to walk by my display, and we would stand there with an entry blank and say, "Hey, get your name in the free drawing to win a set of Britannica." Well, on the way to their gate, everybody would fill that out. Those were crap leads. But
Yep.
we also had leads where people were responding to a TV commercial saying, "Yes, I want more information about Encyclopedia Britannica." We had to pay $25 for those leads, but the free drawing ones were $1. They were worthless. So you can have crap leads. I think the key is don't blame the leads if it's you.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing we have to do as salespeople is self-assess, right? And that is a hard skill. I mean, let's be honest. It's really hard to look at yourself and go, I really don't like how I'm this about me, and now I got to figure out how to fix it. It's a lot for somebody to do that. I also think we are one of the most unstable and stable people in the world because of that. Yeah, I don't think people realize how much self-reflection is involved in what we do. But yeah,
and how mentally strong you have to be.
Oh God, yeah, and rhino thick, right? I read a book about, I can't remember the title, but it was having skin like a rhinoceros. You come out of the jungle and there's sticks and stuff sticking out of you, and you're like, yeah, okay, cool. Where's the water hole? You just move through it. It is what it is. You don't take it personal.
Well, that's a common statement. Don't take it personally, except they are saying it to you. So it's hard to not take it personally.
It is.
The key is, I think, take it for a minute, clear your head and go, okay. I think one of the keys is certainly knowing your numbers. If you know that it takes 6 no's to get to a yes, and you got six no's, a yes is coming. I teach people, and I practice this personally. I love no. I like yes better, but I love no. In fact, if yes is here, no is right here. Everything else, no, sucks. Think it over. I got to talk to my partner or my wife or whatever it is. All that stuff sucks. But I think if you're being honest with yourself, which is the real deal, when you blew it and when it just wasn't going to happen anyways.
My favorite ever is when somebody says, "Which part of no don't you understand?" I always tell them it's the K. Oh, aren't you funny? It's one of those. So
yeah, I don't fight with people. Certainly, if somebody has an objection, if I think it can be worked through, I'll help them. But I think the key truly is what you help people do. You got to have enough good leads and enough appointments at all times so that you don't need any one deal. It's when we're only working on one deal in our pipeline, you can't negotiate effectively, and everything looks bad and the pressure's ridiculous. I always say that consistent and effective prospecting solves 50% of every sales problem. You just got to see more people. And I'm the guy who doesn't like to prospect.
Jeff, magic happens in a CRM system or a lead file when you're at about 150 leads, right? When you can manage your lead inventory like a restaurant does its food, right? It's spoilage, meaning I wouldn't go out today and buy 150 leads because you're going to miss opportunity. But when you build into that and you manage your churn on the back end, resolution, sell-through rates, all that kind of fun stuff, how many leads you need to put in every week, day, or month to keep that 150 number, because magic happens at 150, right? People fall out, they fall in, all kinds of wonderful things, but that's really the golden number we've found, at least in our space.
Yep. And to me, it's all about pipeline management.
100%.
You've got to know how many first appointments do I need to close X amount of deals, because then it becomes math. I say there's an art and a science to selling. It's mostly art, but there is a science too, and the science comes in with the metrics.
It's the beauty to the space. It's numbers generated, right? There's not if, ands, or. It's math, right? Like you said, at the end of the thing, we don't go 2 + 2 might be 4. No, it's definitive. So we can manage skill set development by numbers. We can manage lead quality by numbers, and we can manage our entire business by knowing those and reversing them back to the beginning, right?
Exactly.
How much do I need to invest? What's your cost to acquire? I don't know. That's the problem. And that's one of the things I think if agents salespeople can do anything for themselves. It's truly understanding their numbers.
Yeah.
And
What's
then
your
there's
average sales cycle? What's your dollar volume per sale? All that stuff. Because
yeah,
then it becomes a mathematical formula.
100%.
I know that if I close 25% and I need to close 4 deals, I need 16 first appointments at all times.
Right.
And I'm not a numbers guy, by the way, but that part I understand.
And you don't have to be a numbers guy. You just have to be a paying attention guy, because this is plus and minus math. This isn't crazy, CPA stuff that I go sideways on. But yeah,
Exactly. So if you could go back in time and maybe speak to your younger self about business, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself?
it's going to be okay. It's not the end of the world. That kind of stuff. Everything feels sometimes like you just got beat up on that last call, and it's like my whole life is over. It's not that type of thing. We don't have bad days. I don't have bad days anymore. I have bad moments. And if I could do anything in my career or personal life, it would have been to have known that when I was 20 and actually understood what that meant.
Yeah. Perfect. And you've taken some unconventional risks in your job, right? So what's the most unconventional career risk you took, and how did it pay off, or did it?
Well, not all of them do. But that's the beauty to it, right? I think that probably the most unconventional thing, I'm a big manifester. Now, some people, depending on where you are in your beliefs, you call that prayer, right? I'm not going to get all into gospel because that's not really the point of the call. But the thing that I found as I get older and I practice more, I've learned that those moments when you're in the shower and the solution to something that you've been working on pops into your head magically, it's because you've been hyper focused on that, or manifesting it, or praying about, or whatever it is that your choice of words are for that type of thing for yourself. The answer that you're getting, you have to take massive action for. That is your obligation back to God or the universe when you get those types of things. They don't always work out, but the thing that I found that's interesting is they always lead to a solution at some point. So I think that along the way, there's lessons you have to learn that are different from what I have to learn. So as you're getting those things and you're taking massive action, you're adjusting along the way, and eventually we end up where we need to be, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at one of my favorite books my wife gave me when we first got married is The Celestine Prophecy. And it talks about a decision I made 20 years ago is the reason I'm sitting here today talking to you. And it makes you realize that, yeah, maybe there's some things in our past that probably we're not the most proud of, but those decisions are why we are who we are and where we are today. And I like where I am and who I am today. So therefore I wouldn't change those types of things. So it's that, really.
I'm with you. I'm a big law of attraction guy.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say in the shower. It's a very meditative place, because the water's beating down on you. And a lot of my best ideas come when I'm in the shower.
Yeah.
And then I'm quickly trying to call Siri and asking her to take a note real quick before I forget this by the time I get out.
I can't tell you how many times I've had to de-soap my phone because I'm trying to hammer out the idea before it leaves my head, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I'm also a stand-up comedian on the side. I'm constantly thinking things while I'm in the car, so I'm constantly dictating comedy idea. Here you go.
I love it.
Hey, we've all had successes and failures. Can you recall a failure in your past that turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened to you?
It's micro is really where I think a lot of life's lessons come from. We all have major things like, oh, I got in a car accident and I learned not to drive with my eyes closed. It's never anything that drastic, right? It's always these little micro things where you find these adjustments. I think one of the biggest things that for me, it was leaving corporate America and failing miserably and going back to corporate America because I had to feed my family. And what I realized in that is that I always had corporate America as my plan B. And having a plan B means your plan A doesn't need to actually work. And the biggest lesson I got when I went out on my own in the last time, which was, I don't know, 2017 or so, 2011, I can't remember. It was just that I didn't have a plan B this time. I had a plan A, and my plan B was my plan A better work. And that was it. So yeah, I think that probably one of my biggest mistakes that I've learned the most from was just that. It's you just have to do it. There were some actors speaking recently about becoming famous actors. You know, they all have these horrible stories about starving and sleeping on a couch, or you know, and they say, I didn't have any other option. I'm not good at anything else. You know, and I wasn't good in corporate. I have too many of my own ideas, and I have too many opinions on what I think works. And I don't believe that somebody in an Eiffel Tower can make decisions for a guy that's still in the street. You're too disconnected. We didn't agree. But to have that as a backup plan was foolish. So that's probably my piece there, I would think.
I hear you. I say regularly that I'm a very positive attitude guy. Let's go forward. Everything's cool. But I do live in fear, or act as if I'm in fear of ever having to get a real job.
Yes.
I don't have a plan B. I've been doing this for 20 years, and fortunately, I love what I do. But yeah, there is no plan B. COVID was a big wake up call, because I was doing corporate training. That was 100% of my business, and that died immediately during COVID. So I had to reinvent myself. But there was no what if, or what am I going to do if this doesn't work out? And I have zero. Excuse me. I have zero against anybody who works in a corporate job. It just ain't for me. I love being my own boss, and I love what I do. And at this point, I would be hard pressed to ever go back to a corporate gig. And one of the things I do, Todd, is outsourced or fractional sales management. And typically my clients will offer me a job, and my answer is always, no offense, you don't have enough money to get me to come work for you. And it's got nothing to do with, I don't know what you've got in your pocket. I'm just telling you, for me to come and be your VP of sales, I would give you such a ridiculous number that you go, you're crazy. And I actually had a guy once said, Jeff, veins were popping out of his neck. He was so insulted. I said, you don't have that much money. He goes, you don't know how much I've got. What would it take? I said, okay, I want a $450,000 base and $450,000 more at plan. He goes, that's $900,000. You're crazy. I said, see, I told you.
But at 900K, it might work for a couple of years, right? You could struggle.
At 900K, I could put in a couple of years, but nobody's offering that. So again, fortunately, I love what I do, and I'll keep doing this.
You know, what's funny is they say, what do? I can't remember exactly, but we leave working 40 hours a week to work 100 hours a week to really be happy.
You know what? I'm typically at my desk Saturday mornings and Sunday mornings, cleaning up stuff I couldn't get to during the week. But you know what? I enjoy what I do.
Yeah. Sunday's my favorite day. Nobody bothers you. You can get everything done. It's fantastic. It's
no pesky salespeople trying to sell you something.
Right.
Hey, you and I have a belief that's exactly the same. We both believe anyone can sell.
Oh, yeah.
Even those who think they can't. Why do you think anybody can sell?
Let's prove it, right? So think about being a kid, and you're at home, and you're maybe you're 14, and you've got a date with the girl. It's the girl, and you got to be home at 9. But you don't want to be that uncool. You got to stay out till 11. So we go to mom and dad. Can I stay out till 11 on Friday? I got this big date. They're like, no. Okay, and then you start to value stack. Okay, so I'll clean my room, I'll mow the lawn. Saturday morning, I'll wake up early, I'll clean both bathrooms and do the dishes. And all of a sudden, your mom goes, see you at 11. And what did we do? We presented, we had an objection, we sidestepped, we value stacked, we came back and we closed. And I think that when people, and I see this a lot in a different analogy with my wife, who's an artist, but I think a lot of people try to be sales, that they forget that selling is really just actually stopping trying to sell and making a connection, having a conversation with somebody about what they need and what you have. And if at the end of that conversation or in the middle of that conversation, you both start to realize there's a synergy there, then let's work together. If there isn't, I do not want to slam you into a contract because you're just going to take it back from me in a week or a month from now anyways. So it's a false sense of security, right? We see this with artists. You go to an art show and you know, a semi-talented artist is all art. They're wearing flip-flops, a scuba suit, and high heels, you know, whatever. And you're like, what is that? They're trying to be art. And you look at their work and you're like, meh. And then you see somebody who's just got it. And you wouldn't even know that they were the artist in the gallery. You're like, who's the artist? They're like, oh, it's that normal looking person that's wearing regular clothes over there. And it's just an interesting way to look at this isn't anything more than just that. It's just talk to people. That's all you got to do. It's not tricking. Now there's strategy and structure, right? Like trial closes and opening calls and building rapport and staying in, all that stuff is structure and strategy. But at the core, you should just be listening and responding to an actual conversation.
I always love talking to people who think the exact same way I do, because interestingly, my selling skills course has the same name that yours does, Conversational Selling Skills. If you go to my website, that's exactly what you want to learn how to sell. Jeff will teach you conversational selling skills, because I believe sales is a conversation or series of conversations leading to help the other person choose to do business with you. So what exactly is your conversational selling skills about, and how is it changing the sales game for mostly life insurance agents?
So, what I see with a couple of things. Let's talk first about scripts. I think a sales script is a wonderful tool, but it's a tool. A hammer doesn't do every job, right? It does the job it's designed for really well. It's a tool. So sales scripts kind of make sure that you stay on track and you cover everything you need to cover, so that you don't get so far off the path that now you're talking about things that don't have anything to do with anything. You can't bring it back to the line. So that's, but within a sales script, you have to find your personality, your words, and you have to understand that you're going to bounce around in that thing, right? It's not going to go the way you want it to go every time, because unfortunately, Jeff, you're not on the same script I'm on, right? So that's probably the first piece, is some fluidity in there. I spend a lot of my time with agents on opening the call, because in our space, it's systemically the same. You answer the phone and I am literally trying not to pass out, because I've got to deliver 403 words before you even get to say, huh? Right. And it's this splattering of who knows what. You might as well be selling me cable. Nobody has any idea what's going on. And it opens the call and starts conflict. Right now we're in a conflict, and you're not going to recover, not the way you need to. So I'm a big believer in disruption and making that opening different from what everybody else is doing. And I think small talk is the key to getting that conversation started, right? And then a few planned transitions throughout, right? So we move from small talk to why are we here? And that's more conversational, but there's a bridge there, and you have to bridge that gap. And from conversational to why you're here, now we got to get into suitability. And how do we transition from one to suitability to take that conversation to the suitability? And then from suitability, we go into presenting. So what solutions do I have? How does this work? And did I listen to their why they're here and their suitability? And am I able, with product knowledge, to glue together solutions that I have that are going to meet the needs that this person has? And then from there, our last transition from suitability is into setting up for retaining the call or retaining the business, right? And prospecting for referrals and earning the right to do all those things. That's really my approach to the whole process.
So how'd you come up with that?
Complex.
Sorry?
If that makes sense. It's easy and complex, if it makes sense.
Yeah. Look, if it's too difficult, nobody's going to be able to do it.
Right.
I often say that my oldest daughter is a rocket scientist, literally she's an aerospace engineer. She's literally a rocket scientist. You don't have to be my daughter Avery to sell. I always say you only need half a brain. If you got half a brain, you can sell if you follow the right steps. And there's lots of ways to do it that are great and lots of ways that are crappy. But if you don't have a solid understanding of what is the process I'm going to take people through, then they're going to take you through their process, and you wind up with way more no's than you need.
Yep.
So,
and the biggest thing is, after all that is the role playing. It's the most valuable thing anybody can do. And very few people do it because it feels icky. Right. Yes, but man, you better be comfortable being uncomfortable, because otherwise you're kind of dead in the water. Right. You're just going to get whatever it is you're getting. You're not going to get better. Exactly. Sales is interesting. It's either the highest paying career or the lowest paying career. And it's the practitioner that, sorry about the bubbles. It's the practitioner that decides whether or not that's a thing. Right.
Somebody thinks you just gave a great answer.
That's the Apple ampulations that have been going out lately. So
awesome. So how did you come up with the idea of focusing on conversational selling instead of the more traditional methods where, hi, Todd, I'm Jeff Goldberg from Jeff Goldberg Associates. Thanks so much for your time. Let me get right to the point and tell you why we're the best company in the world. Blech.
two things. One is I wasn't smart enough to do the blah part. Early in my career, people were just, you got to build rapport. I'm like, what does that mean? You know, when they just scream that, it takes a lot to try and figure. And you know, back in the day, sales managers were lackluster. You know, there wasn't a lot of there wouldn't be resources that we have today. We had a few guys, right? Zig being one of them. So yeah, I think that I think it's just that.
Gotcha. So you talked about using sales scripts before, and especially if people are cold calling, I think you need a script, but you can't sound scripted. So what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see salespeople making when they're trying to use a script?
So I'm going to give you my script. Those are my words, right? But I'm going to tell you to use my words, but not be me, be you. Well, that's confusing. So I think that you have to get to the Chevy Chase be the ball, no, Caddyshack level of your script. You have to find your voice inside of whatever structure you've been given. So, you know, my opening line is great to Jeff, following up with you on your request for life insurance. How's things going today? Doing good?
Yeah,
and
great.
We have a conversation from there, right? Now, if you come in and you try to use the exact same thing I'm using, it may not flow for you. But you need a variation of that keeps the flavor, but is Jeff and not Todd. And I think that's the biggest thing we see when managers hand a script over. They're like, you say this word for word, but what they said doesn't make sense for me to say this next.
Yeah.
And now you just sound like an idiot. And guess what you just did? You lost the deal.
100%.
So all that advice is horrible. So my thing is, transitions in scripting, like, you know, you can break script, like you said, there's micro conversations within the grand scheme of things. You have a call opening, you've got their why, you've got suitability, you've got presenting, but there's a transition and a setup that you should know between each one of those stages, like the back of your hand. Because in my opinion, everything inside of each one of those silos should be organic. It should be me riffing off of what you said to me, because now we're having a conversation. I'm not just yelling things at you.
Exactly.
What you have to know is the transition. So I know when to cut off small talk and to start doing business talk. And I also have to know how to transition the tonality between the two, because small talk tonality and business talk tonality are just a little nuanced and different. And you can't, for us, we can't be asking health questions like we just opened the call. Hey, Jeff, Todd Schuchart, following up your request for life insurance. How's it going? Oh, I hear you got cancer. None of that. It doesn't work, right? So there's a few things there I think people have to take ownership of inside of the scripting structure before it really becomes fluid. So we call it 100 to butter. So it's 100 live presentations before you're smooth with a V as butter. And sometimes smooth is clunky. Hey, real quick, Jeff, and now I'm stuttering because I'm letting my brain catch up to my tongue. But it's kind of planned, right? It's a way that I can keep control, a little bit of noise, get my thoughts in front of me, and I can now start to deliver the transition that I'm heading towards, so I can get into the next part of the conversation.
Yeah, I'll repeat. You know, it's great to have a script, but it can't sound like a script.
Yeah,
I am a person who loves getting cold calls. I listen to everyone because I want to hear how good are they.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm incredibly impressed and it's awesome. And a lot of the times it's like, do me a favor, say what you just said, but don't look at your script. I know you're looking at a script. Just talk to me. And you know, people they freak out. But you know, I think the key is to memorize your script, and then exactly what you said. You got to make it your own. I happen to be funny, and I'll often coach people. Don't try to be me. Just be you. If you're not funny, don't try to be funny. Just be Todd. Just be Bill. Whatever it is. And you know, the truth is that over 50 years, a lot of things have changed in sales, but one thing hasn't. That's that people still do business with people that they like and trust. So be a human. Interact with other human beings. And one of the things I hate is when I'm coaching a salesperson, I used to sit and listen to people on calls, and they get off a call and go, who was that on the phone? They'll tell me about the other person. I'm going, no, you don't talk to me like that. What's that voice? They put on this business voice as if they have to act a certain way when you really just need to be human.
Yeah. I used to have this guy who worked for me. He talked just like this. As soon as he answered the phone, be like, how y'all doing? I'm like, where did the redneck guy come from? Like out of nowhere, you're a country guy? It was so weird. It's like when you hear about those accidents and they wake up and all of a sudden they can speak Chinese or something. It's like they didn't even know they could. It's interesting. But yeah, you're right.
Yep. One of the things that salespeople tend to struggle with is, when they get an objection. First of all, they freak out. They think everything's done, which it certainly isn't. How does your conversational selling skills program talk about common objections? And I think your method is it's supposed to feel easy and natural. Yes.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So let's restructure an objection. What is it? It's a question for more information. You've either done one of two, and this goes back to what we talked about earlier. You have to look at the practitioner. So we talk about sales script optimization. So sales script optimization is if Jeff, I'm presenting the same thing 6 times and I keep hitting the same objection, I'm the one that's digging that rabbit hole that we're falling down. If I don't have the skills to get us both back out of the rabbit hole, we die. So what do? We avoid the rabbit hole, which means as you optimize your sales presentations, you either figure out a way not to open that rabbit hole or you address the objection because you know it's coming. And when you know you've nailed that, and you can't do it all at once because it just doesn't work like that for us, right? It's like I nail the intro, I nail this piece, and eventually you end up with just this smooth as butter experience that when you get to the end, you go, any questions? And they go, not really. I did my job. Now, so an objection for me is not somebody saying no. They're saying, I need some more on this. I don't understand what you just said to me. So what do? This is traditional stuff. Sidestep. We get off of the sales pitch. We address the issue. We don't lose control because we say, now, does that make sense, Jeff? Absolutely. Great. And we rebuttal, right? That was our rebuttal. And now we close. And people a lot of times think that we say close there, like, so give me your credit card. We may not even be there. This might be in suitability still. So close means I close that loop of getting off of the sales pitch and I come back right where I was and we keep going. And it feels awkward, but it absolutely takes control of the conversation and keeps you moving through a form, right? With somebody where now you're not lost and they're just hammering because they answer a lot of new people will answer a question, then they wait. And it's like a prize fighter, they're waiting to get hit in the face again. You wouldn't do that in a ring. Don't do that in the world. So for me, it's how do we avoid objections by optimizing our sales talk to not either create them or because we know something's complex, how do we simplify it so that we don't get people confused in an area that we're in? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think one of the challenges, I think we create the problem as trainers, because most of us, and myself included, in my selling skills program, handling objections comes at the very end of the day. We've covered everything else, but to me, that's not when you handle objections. You should be handling objections in the information gathering stage, because once somebody has said no, I mean, the traditional thinking is they say no, now you get an objection, you give a rebuttal. But once they have no in their mind, I don't want to fight with people.
Right.
I'm fighting an uphill battle if you've already said no to me, and I was married for 10 years. I don't need any more uphill battles. I'd rather my belief is this. I don't care what industry you're in. You're probably not getting more than 3 objections, maybe 5 tops. And maybe. It's the same one over and over and over. So there's really no excuse for when somebody says, your price is too high. Hold on. Never heard that one before. Let me call my trainer, Todd, and ask him what I should say. I mean, you should be ready, but bring them up early on in the process. I call those every time objections, the ones that come up every single time.
Yeah.
They're going to come up anyways. You might as well attack it before they even think about it.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'd rather lose a deal early than go through 3 meetings or 5 meetings over 2 months and find out I didn't have a shot from the start. Because one of the things I think is crucial is you've got to protect your time as a salesperson, because we only
100%.
have so many hours each week and month that we can do what we do, which is sell. You can't be selling at midnight unless you're selling at topless bars, in which case I'll come on the sales call with you. But you get rid of it early. I have no problem with somebody who says no to me. I'm good with those.
What's funny you say that is everybody looks at their lead investment and protects that like it's everything, and that we can make more money. If you're not protecting your time, it's the only commodity that we have in this life, and you're not paying any attention to it. And that's the thing you can't get back. So yeah, tell me no, tell me fast. Let's figure this out. Right. I don't think I'm going to say some magic thing that's going to make you buy and stick.
And I'm certainly not going to talk you into anything that you don't want, don't need, or can't afford. That's not my job. That's what people think is our job.
Right.
That's not it. My job is to have enough conversations with enough people so that some of them say, you know what? I think I need some of that. Sign me up.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Now you and I focus on something else that I think is crucial, which most salespeople suck at, and that's active listening. If you're going to ask questions, which to me is the key to selling, but you don't listen to the answers, you're screwed. So how does your conversational selling skills program talk about active listening, and how can sellers actually master that? Because it's a lost art with most salespeople.
Shut up and sell is what we call it, right? So here's the thing, it's not about features and benefits anymore. If we've not learned anything from Apple, right? It's not that it's not the capacity of the iPod. It's the freedom to listen to music wherever you are. So how do you equate that back to what you're doing and what you're presenting? And I think that comes from really being hyper focused on what they're saying to you. We have the intuition, right? Your third eye. You have a third ear. And that's the same idea as this, right? You're trying to listen really hard at what's going on and what they're actually saying. What's the tonality telling you? What is your gut telling you? Right? You're dialing into senses that aren't just you listening. And the only way we can do that is if I'm focused on what you're saying, not on what I want to say next, regardless of what you're. So I'm asking question one. I'm already thinking about what I'm going to say for question two. I have no idea what you just told me. And this is happening when your prospect says, I just told you that. And guess where you are? You're done. There is no recovering from that. You just blew it. Right. And it's hard. A seasoned rep, I think, can probably recover from those. But man, it is incredibly hard to do. And it's so easy to avoid. Be present. Like you said, be human, shut the hell up and sell. Let them tell you. And what you should be doing, what I do when people are talking, is I'm starting to hear where to go.
Yes.
Oh, hey, Jeff, you just said that. Okay, cool. I'm going to go over here. Right. And oh, you just said this. That's not going to work. That'll stack over here, though. Now I have a different solution. And as this evolution is happening, because why? I'm listening, I'm starting to evolve what I'm going to do when I get to present. And I'm going to verify all that stuff by asking more questions when I'm doing my suitability. You said when you were saying this, and I heard, and I think people are afraid to ask what I call dig-in statements. So, Jeff, you just said something, and it made me go, huh? Either physically, which we usually don't do, but in our head, we're like, what the hell? You should be digging into those things. Hey, tell me a little bit more about what you meant when you said X, Y, and Z. And now I'm not making assumptions because we know what assuming does, right? We want to avoid that at all costs. Because again, then we get to the end and we think we're closing at the end. And that's the other big mistake. That's not where we close. We close at hello. If you screw hello up and you don't do this listening piece, your grade at the end is, I need to think about it. You failed, right? I got to talk to my wife. I got to pray. I got to do this. I got to do that. I'm not sure if I have the money, but at the top of the call, I know you needed me. I did something between there and here that kind of screwed that up. And I think a lot of times it's not paying attention or actually hearing because I'm so worried about what I have to say.
Yeah. And if the prospect says they need to think it over, you did your job wrong.
Correct.
If you did your job correctly, there should be nothing to think over at the end. Well, really only two things. One is, do I trust that Todd's going to do what he says he's going to do? Well, if you haven't figured that out by the end of our conversation, you're not going to figure that out later. So do I trust Todd? And the other one is, can I actually afford? Is the price reasonable, and can I actually afford it? Now, sometimes people want what I've got. They can't afford it. That's okay. But those are the only two things to think over. Other than that, if you're speaking to the right person and you've done your job properly as a salesperson, it should be just yes or no.
Correct.
And there's something else you said earlier, which comes right back to this, that taking that moment to pause for a second. So you're 100% right, of course, Todd, that most salespeople are listening to get up with what they're going to say next instead of actually listening. And there's nothing wrong with listening to what they say and going, interesting. And giving yourself, we think we have to have everything at the top of our, right here, so it just pops out immediately. We got to be smooth. That's not real life. Real conversations are not smooth sometimes. So you don't have to be slick. Be real.
Yeah, real sells way more. I can't tell you how many times I get out of a sales call and people are like, I've never been on a meeting like this. That's a shame, is how I feel. I'm like, because this is my profession, right? And we already know that there's people parked in sales that shouldn't be here to begin with, right? They should be doing other things.
Yeah.
And it just breaks my heart when I hear that because this should be, oh yeah, that make, we should just be having these engagements all the time, but it's definitely interesting.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that, I remember I'm on Long Island, and the 800-pound gorilla for newspapers here is called Newsday. And I called them. I spoke to their VP of advertising sales, and I gave him my, it was a cold call, gave him my opening, and he goes, "Can you teach my people to do that?" I'm like, "What?" He goes, "What you just did to me." I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I do for a living. Come on in. I want to meet with you."
Jeff, I did so much in newspaper because of I opened my call with a close. They're like, oh, have you never heard of the trial close before? No. Okay, cool. This is going to be awesome.
I am seriously, constantly stunned how when I'm giving advice to either managers or presidents, CEOs, or salespeople, it's such a revelation. And I'm in my head, I'm like, are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. I just told you you shouldn't even pay me because what I told you was so basic. Now, I don't say that out loud, but yeah, exactly. We talked about sales scripts before, and the one thing we want to make sure is that we don't sound robotic. So how can you help salespeople avoid sounding like a robot when they are sticking to a script?
Yeah, so that's a really great question, and this is practice. So I like to box. I'm a boxing fan. I'm not good at it, but I enjoy it. It's a great workout. I don't always do well with an opponent. I'm way better on just a bag with nobody in front of me. But in boxing, the thing that you learn is that for every live round of boxing with another opponent that you do 3 rounds of shadow boxing. And shadow boxing, for those that don't know, nobody's in front of you. You're pretending to fight. You're throwing your little hands around. You don't have any gloves on or anything. You're not really, really snapping. You're just kind of moving and pretending, right? And what it does and what you're building is muscle memory. And sales is the same way. If you're not pitching 10 people today, you're pitching 10 people today. And those might be people that look just like you because you're staring into a mirror. And you're working on your tonality. And the easiest way to sound natural is to use your face, right? Try smiling and sounding miserable. It just doesn't happen, right? So and you lean in. Hey, listen, I hear what you're saying. I'm on the phone and I'm doing this ridiculous stuff. Nobody's in. If you ever just had a video, I'd look like one of those, Mick Jagger things where they take the music off and he's like, ooh, ooh, and you're like, this is ridiculous, right? You look like that. But to me, that's ownership, right? So we don't own what we're doing until we pay for it. The currency for sales skills is practice. And it's not practicing on the field. They will not run a new play on an NFL game Sunday during a game. Yep. They will practice it for weeks before they launch it into an actual battle because the whole team needs to have muscle memory to run that play effectively. There is no difference here. You got to build up the muscle memory because when you're under pressure, muscle memory is the only thing that saves you. In boxing, there's been a couple times boxing with somebody that I've thrown a punch. I've been like, I can't even believe that went off. It's because I shadow boxed it so many times. I just did it. I didn't even know why. It just happened. Yep. And that's when you know that you've become the ball. You're at that level now where you're in top performer, range. That's where you're heading. So it's all about that. And if you don't have a role play partner, you don't need one. You need a mirror. You got a cell phone, record yourself. If you don't like it, I don't care. That's the whole point, is to get uncomfortable and weird about it and to listen to yourself and cringe. And if you're cringing,
record yourself on Zoom.
Yeah, anything. And if you're cringing at it, so's the prospect. So stop doing the cringy stuff. But you don't know that unless you're playing it back and listening to it.
Yeah, 100%. I told you I love listening to sales pitches, and some are good and some are bad. Do you have a favorite bad sales pitch story?
My favorites are when I get called from another country and the English is not quite right and they tell me their name is Bob.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, interesting. Bob, is that a family name? It's so there are so many of them out there.
You're more polite than me. I'm going, really? Bob is what your parents named you? I'm thinking not. Where are you? Yeah. Islamabad. Okay,
Islamabad.
Bob. But he spells it backwards.
Yeah.
I'll tell you my favorite. I got a call a few months back, and the woman says, "Hi, I'm calling from your copier company. Could you please go to your machine and tell me which model you have?" And I said, "If you're my copier company, don't you know what you sold me?" She goes, "I don't have that on my record." I said, "Okay, give me a minute." And I put her on hold. And I picked up a half an hour later. And of course, she was gone because I was going to tell her I just drove to Staples because that's where I bought my machine. I hate when people are obviously lying to me. It's like, why would you possibly do that? I bought it at Staples. You're not calling from my copier company. How can you expect me to ever do business with you if you start out with a lie?
Yeah.
It just doesn't
Oh,
make sense.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, and if I'll throw a rebuttal at them and I hear them pause and then they pull up something and they're, they're looking for the rebuttal in their
Flipping the
comments.
pages.
Yeah. And then they start saying something. I'm like, that is not even what I asked you. You clearly didn't hear me. And then my least favorite is when I answer the phone and you just start puking all over the place. And I can't say anything. I don't even know who you are yet. And that's the thing I think people fail to realize. It's kind of like when you walk into a store at the mall. You put your toe inside the store, some kid's yelling, "Can I help you?" No, you can't. I can look at pants and underwear all on my own. I'm a big boy. Your intent is still to buy pants and underwear. You leave with it, but your knee-jerk reaction is and you have to diffuse that, and people don't. And when you go in and you just throw up, and I don't even know what you're doing right now. You don't even know where I am. You're calling my pocket. I could be out in the middle of the woods skinning a deer. You have no idea what's going on. Like, what do you need? So yeah, that stuff frustrates me. I did, Jeff, one time call for box seats at an arena in New York, and the sales guy said, "Those are all gone, but I do have seats, lawn seats." I said, "So let me understand this. I called asking for a skybox, top of the line seat, and you offered me mud?" He goes, "Oh." So we had a little bit like you. I did a little retraining, and he gave us a box at the hockey arena, which was kind of nice. So it worked out. Yeah.
Have you ever closed a deal in like a wild or some kind of unexpected place?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I was known for quite a while for writing contracts on toilet paper, and in the men's room. If if phone rings, we're sales guys. We answer, right? And I can remember literally writing all their information on toilet paper because I didn't have any paper with me, and just keep moving the roll down as I'm writing the stuff. And I get off the call, and the guy next to me just was clapping. He's like, "That was great." So yeah, ridiculous things like that, probably. Yeah.
Have you ever had a bad one? Something went like horrendously wrong and somehow you still managed to salvage it? We've all had those, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I probably quite a few of those. I'll call sometimes, and again, you do these role plays in your head and these practices, and somebody says something snarky, and you say something snarky back, and they laugh, and you're like, "Oh, this is my people," right? And we go from there. I was door knocking, old school, right? Walking into places, and this woman was eating a chicken wing without her hands. So the whole thing was in her mouth, and you could see it. It was going this way. So her cheeks were popped out a little, and she screamed, spitting at me because there was a no soliciting sign on the door. And I told her, I said, "Oh, I did see that on my way in. Hey, real quick, before you choke, can you tell me who I can set an appointment with so I can follow your rules?" And she gave me the name and contact info of the guy. She was so beside herself that I didn't run. And we ended up getting the deal. I ended up getting the business eventually, but I thought I was going to kill her, literally. I'm like, I don't know the time.
Yeah. For those who've never done it, in-home sales is just one of the most interesting things you can possibly do. And obviously, when I was selling Encyclopedia Britannica, we would go to people's homes, and you see weird things and you hear weird things and just crazy stuff when you walk into somebody's house. And I'll never forget this when I walked in. Very lovely house. This was a strong lead. They had written in. They wanted to find out about Britannica, and really nobody wanted to know about Britannica. They just wanted to know how much is it. And we never told the price without a reason. We were known. You can't get a price out of us unless you're going to sit for an hour with us and talk about it. So I walk into this house, and everybody's sitting in the living room at a big table for dinner. And normally people would go, "I'm sorry, we're at dinner now. You got to come back another time." But the guy said, "Come on, let's go into the kitchen. I'll sit with you while everybody's eating." So we're talking. 20-minute presentation. Normally it was an hour. He goes, Jeff, I'm sold. Just write it up right now. So I'm writing it up. He's a paid in full. And I got up to leave, handed him the agreement. And he goes, where are you going? I'm like, well, I'm going home. He goes, no, go back into the kitchen. So I go into the kitchen. He goes, sit down. I'm like, what's wrong? He goes, nothing's wrong. My wife made food. I want you to eat. I'm like, oh, I'm not hungry. That's okay. He goes, I want you to eat. Turned out it took me a little while to figure out what this gentleman did for a living. And let's say organized crime might have been his job. And you know what? I had a bunch of delicious pasta, closed a paid in full, which gave me a bonus, and went on.
I love that.
Interesting stuff. I could tell you stories that would curl your toes, but
I love the stories about sales reps trying to avoid prospecting. That's more of what I've learned. I had a woman in business skirt suit thing on her hands and knees crawling under desks. And I just was following her and met her at the end when she popped her little head out and said, oh, hi. I go, what are you doing? She goes, trying to get out of prospecting. I said, cool. Let's get back to our desk. A lot of that. Because I've built and rebuilt sales teams. So usually if I was coming into an organization, it wasn't because they were doing well. So it was a lot of just babysitting adults. Yeah.
I say that all the time. Sales management is a babysitting job.
100%.
Salespeople are babies. Me too. I'm including.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not accusing. I'm a baby.
Nope.
Give me the good leads. Leave me alone. I'll go do my job. We're babies. And yeah, you have to be a babysitter and a psychologist and everything, a bartender, all that stuff. Sales management is a thankless job. It really is.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Your top producers are going to make more money than you do, and you're putting up with nonsense all day long.
Yep.
We've only got time for one more question. I could talk to you all day. Let's see. How did switching your mindset from chasing quota dollars to collecting points by playing sales turn you into a top producer?
This is my favorite thing in the world. I try to have this conversation with everybody. I'm really glad you asked. So here's the thing. Money is stress, right? Like, think about it. I need money. I'm freaking out and I'm desperate. And everybody can hear your desperation. I equate this to dating. You met the girl. This is the girl. You better play it cool, buddy. Nope. I texted her 17 times and called her 6 times. When did you get her number? 3 minutes ago. It's over. I have bad news for you. It's over, right?
Stalker.
Yeah, it's too much. And we do this in sales because we need money. So I was at one of those points, and you ever get to that spot where you're just so frustrated that all you can do is cry? And it's not this sad, weak thing. You're just like, I can't do it. I was there, and it was dark, and I wanted to do this. Like, more than anything, I wanted to be a sales guy. And what I realized in that moment was, it's not going to beat me. I need to think about this differently. And then I thought about how much I hated Pac-Man and how much I loved Pac-Man. I hated Pac-Man because it was so stressful. But when I started figuring out the patterns and realized that those led to the most points ever, Pac-Man was fun. So how do I make selling Pac-Man? I find the patterns and I collect points, not dollars. And as soon as I started going after points, which are still dollars, it took all the stress off of money and it made it a game. I don't go to work, I play, right? I'm going to get on, before I even get on the call, Jeff, you're my deal. That's what I say. And now you and I are going to connect at a level never seen before on a sales call in your experience. And at the end, we're going to get the deal. I'm going to get points, which means I'm going to win. And that's really what it did. It changed the entire way that I looked at quota. And it made it almost comical and so damn achievable. And what happened doing that is I didn't hit quotas. I blew them out of the water. I have never missed a quota since. That's been, 30 years.
Love that.
Yeah, it's so good. I'm so glad you asked that.
Todd, I came to that point where I was crying at one point, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Sales is just not going to be, it's not working out. And I got a job as a reservation agent for Air Canada. Went through 2 weeks of training. Then they sit you down in front of a computer monitor and you're taking reservations. And in between, you could talk to your neighbor. So, I'm about 45 minutes into the day and there's nothing happening. So I turned to the person next to me. I said, how do you get a raise here? And the woman said, it's automatic after 3 months. I said, automatic? She goes, yeah, you'll get 25 cents per hour more. I'm like, 25 cents an hour? What if I do a great job? 25 cents an hour. What if I do a crappy job? 25 cents an hour. I raised my hand. The lead agent come over. I said, I resign. And I went back into sales. I realized sales actually was the career for me. And unfortunately, we're out of time. Todd, before we go, how do people reach you if they're interested in talking to you about any of the services you offer?
Yeah, so razorridge.com is our website. We've got all kinds of fun resources on there. Join us on our Razor Ridge Facebook group or Razor Ridge Leads on YouTube. We're everywhere. So come hang out,
You want to spell that? It's not Racer, it's R-A-Z, right?
It's RAZORRIDGE.com, Razor Ridge. Yes, sir.
Razor Ridge. Todd, thank you for sharing your brilliance so generously. This has been terrific. I could talk to you all day. There's no broadcast next week. For those of you who are celebrating Christmas, please have a wonderful Christmas. And always remember this. I'll end as I always do. Remember that sales is a game of making things happen. Get out there and make sales happen. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you. Have a good Christmas, all.
You too.